In Mark chapter 2, we have recorded for us Mark's account of Jesus' healing of the paralytic. Jesus was in Capernaum, which had become his home base of operations, and a large crowd had gathered at the house where he was. 4 men were carrying their paralytic friend on a bed to Jesus so that he could heal him. But when they got to the house, they realized they couldn't get in the door because of the large crowd. So they climbed up on the roof, peeled back the covering, and let down their friend in front of Jesus. Jesus, seeing their faith, looked down at the paralytic and said, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Some scribes who were standing around said, "What is he saying? Only God can forgive sins." But Jesus knew what was in their hearts. And he said, "Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up, pick up your bed, and walk? But so that you may know," Jesus said, "that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins." Then he turned to the paralytic and said, "Get up, pick up your bed, and walk." And he did. And all those who were standing around were amazed and glorified God and said, "We have never seen anything like this." 4 things about this text. First of all, notice the diligence of these men. They knew that Jesus had what their friend desperately needed, and a tremendous obstacle was placed in their way. But they would not be dissuaded. They went to great lengths to get to Jesus. Second, notice Jesus' first statement to this man. He says, "Your sins are forgiven." And I imagine that the 4 friends and this man thought, "Well, that's not what we came for." But Jesus reveals his priorities in this statement. He shows that his greatest concern was about this man's sin, not about his paralysis. Jesus' greatest concern for you and for me is about our sin. Jesus did not come primarily to give us happy lives or to produce societal reform. In fact, if he had given us happy lives and reformed societies but not taken care of our sin problem, then it would have been like rearranging the furniture in a burning house, not worth much. Jesus gave this man what he most needed. And so here we are 2,000 years later. Which one do you think the man appreciates more today? Sure, the healing of his legs gave him the opportunity to do things he may have never thought possible. But the benefits of that lasted only as long as he lived. The benefits of Jesus' forgiveness are impacting him today. Jesus also says, by his statement that he is forgiving this man's sin, that all of this man's sins were against him. And the scribes understand that. And they say, "Who does Jesus think he is? He can't say, 'Your sins are forgiven.' Only God can do that." And they were right about that. But Jesus knew what was in their hearts. And he said, "Which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or 'Get up, pick up your bed, and walk'?" What Jesus is saying is, anybody can say, "Your sins are forgiven," and you can't really see the results. But if I was to tell this paralytic to get up and walk, then we would know pretty quickly whether or not I was bluffing. And so, he said, that it would be evident that Jesus did have the authority to forgive sins, he turned to the paralytic and said, "Get up, pick up your bed, and walk." And it would have been one thing if Jesus had just said it. But the man got up, picked up his bed, and walked. Now, I want to leave you with 2 questions today. What does that say about Jesus' power to forgive? And what does that say about who Jesus is?